What's up everybody? I got another BMW project going on here today. Installing RSK street adjustable coilover kit. It's an inexpensive kit. I was debating on spending a lot more money. Don't like to shortcut on suspension. But all said and done, this kit is $314, free shipping on Amazon. I did a little research. There's cheaper kits out there that offer more parts, come with the strut pivot bearings, things like that, for less money. This kit is just the struts, springs, rear shocks, and springs. You don't get the pivot bearings. I looked at it like I'd like to keep as many of the parts BMW as possible, since I was going cheap. All that said, quality looks decent. I think some concerns are in this area, crappy welds that could break. This is just one piece that it looks stout. I don't see any areas where this would be a concern. So as far as longevity, that's probably where you're going to lose out when you don't spend a lot of money. But down the road, I'll get a set of better coilovers. So I went ahead and I already removed the old McPherson strut spring assemblies. Use your Bentley manual. You guys can figure that out. Just a quick look at the rear spring. Yellow is not really my color, but you're not going to see it. So, adjuster, again, I don't know how well you can see this, but the quality is decent. It doesn't look like cheap junk. Like, maybe some of these Chinese-made, even cheaper kits that come with more parts. You think, they got to be trash. The rear shock. In most areas, there's auto stores that have tool loan programs. I don't own the spring compressors, and they're not terribly expensive. How often do you do this, right? You buy it, you use it, you turn it back in, and you get your money back. These are for the rear, front are different. These are for the front. Here, you see old McPherson strut spring assembly. Here's your pivot bearing. It's up here. You can take these 3 bolts off as long as you don't take that center nut off and drop this out of the car. If you take that center nut off, this thing is going to unload. So make sure you compress these springs before you take that nut off. I'm going to do that momentarily. Quick, take a look at the difference. Coilover versus McPherson strut. We'll be reusing the pivot bearing. We're going to go ahead and compress the spring. So it's going to look like there's still pressure on here. Just a little bit. Just to give you an idea, and I've already done the left-hand side. That's what that spring looks like, completely unloaded. So, quite a difference. I'm going to carefully take this nut off. It has an Allen wrench in the center, and if you had a special kind of socket, you could do that. Have an Allen wrench and use a socket to remove it, because you can't get a wrench in there. I'm going to use the impact, and usually it's enough to vibrate it off. Your factory nut is a 21mm. I take it off slowly. I don't want to go all the way off until I know this thing is unloaded enough. Use caution. I'm wearing a glove. Anything I can do to protect myself. Once a little bit of time. Using the nose. I would recommend do not stare directly at the end of this while doing it, just in case. There you go. So there's your pivot bearing. If you plan on, you feel you want new ones, now would be the time to do it for sure. I'm just going to clean them, repack them. The car's got 175,000 miles on it, which is a lot of miles, but they're still working. So. Now I can take the pressure off the spring. And try to keep equal pressure on both sides. See how far gone these are. So the way that I repack the pivot bearing is put a layer of your favorite grease, whatever that is, over the end. I'm plugging the center hole with my finger, and then with the palm of my hand I just work it through. And you may have to apply some more grease. Once it's working its way through the bearing on the other side, you'll be able to see it. You can wipe up the excess, and really that should be good to go. And again, my bearings are okay, but if you're wanting to replace them or yours are worn, now would be the time to do it and skip this messy step. So on the reassembly of the new coilover, the cool thing is that I don't need to compress this spring. I just dial these adjusters way down, which gives me enough room on the top end. Take the nut off. This washer, I just threw it on the bench. I didn't use it. The factory pivot bearings come with this big old washer here. So I didn't feel that I'd need that other washer on there as well, but you know, that's at your own discretion. So simply set that on there like that, right on the new nut. Now the nut that comes with this is a larger size. I think it's actually a 22 instead of a 21mm. And it also has a nylon locking insert, and so you're not going to be able to just zip that on with an impact gun at this point, like I was able to take the old one off. So I kind of rigged up the setup I'll show you next. You're going to have to find the method that works best for you. What I was able to make work was an aircraft spark plug socket. It's actually a 7/8, even though it's a metric nut. 7/8 is close enough. It's I don't know what size Allen wrench it is, but whatever size fits. This aviation spark plug socket has a hex on it, so I'm able to leave the center hole open so the Allen wrench can be inside, preventing the shaft from turning, and I'm able to put a wrench on the socket and wrench it down. It worked for me. I like to make stuff work. Hey, go buy the right tools, you know, if that's your thing. But this worked for me. And I just put the Allen wrench in the vise and balance the whole assembly like this and snug it down. Refer to your Bentley manual for torque values. Something like this, German torque is probably acceptable. There you have it. Don't forget to put your dust cover back on to keep all the dirt and water out of your pivot there. See, that spins pretty good. You should be able to tell if yours are worn or not. One other thing I wanted to show you real quick before we install it in the car. Factory strut will have these two rivets, for lack of a better term, that fits in a slot on the clamp on your control arm that clamps onto this to locate it. And then this is the stop that you butt up against so that you know you're fully inserted. On the new one, the stop and the locator are one and the same piece. So that takes place of the two rivets. It's just the little tongue. And then there's your stop. There is a difference between the left and the right struts. And what it is this mount bracket for your sway bar inlink in relation to this locating tongue or the rivets. So you can figure it out visually. There's the two rivets and there's the sway bar inlink tab. And we're lined up. If you switch them, it's not going to work. So I like to use a little anti-seize on the end of the strut. You know, chances are I might be changing them again. And perhaps it'll make it easier coming back apart. The factory ones have been in there 175,000 miles. Pain in the butt. One of the reasons I didn't film the removal because it was painful and not really something worth watching. But anyway, that perhaps will make life easier down the road. I had to remove the lower roll-ups. I think the Bentley manual doesn't really talk about it. May or may not be necessary for you, but I had to do it. One thing it does say is to loosen the bolt anyway, because these bushings shouldn't be tightened down until the suspension is at its normal ride height, so so they can pivot, and then you'll snug them back up. I just used a floor jack underneath it and load the suspension until it came off the jack stand and snug them down. Just until it lifts off the jack stand. course, there's going to be some variance when you get your ride height adjusted, but minor. Just coming off. Now I'm going to set my ride height, at least get it close. It should be adjusted once the car is on the ground, but this is kind of a preliminary setting. So I use a floor jack underneath the tire. I've already done the other side and measured it at 13 inches from the center of the center cap. The tower lifts off the jack. Yeah, pretty centered. There's a little bit of danger in this. So it is off the jack center. So I measure from the center of the center cap to top of the large, and that's 13 1/4 inches. So I'm going to have to adjust that. Lower that down. Make an adjustment. Alright, I made the adjustment. Already jacked the car back up. And we get exactly 13 inches, which is what the other side is. I don't know if I'm going to leave it there, but for now, preliminary setup, we're good to go. The coil over kit comes with 2 spanner wrenches also for making your adjustments. Alright, now I'm starting on the rear. Spring and shock removal. Already got them out. I'm just going to show you guys the install. Again, use your Bentley manual for the removal. Here's the spring, here's the shock, because these are adjustable front and rear. Got the adjuster, sits like that. Again, the quality looks decent, a lot better than I would have expected for the cost. Alright, so I like to put a little anti-seize on the adjuster. I live in Florida, chances are I'll set this thing and forget it, and then down the road I want to adjust it and the damn thing will be corroded. That's your preference. Install, I adjust them all the way to the lowest setting. Okay, so I already have the spring and shock out. Put the new spring in before putting the new shock. You can see there's 2 ends of the spring. That end has a coil that's protruding beyond the end. And the other side, and this is different than your factory, has a flat. That's where the adjuster goes. The adjuster actually going to be on the top side like that. And then the bottom, there is a rubber piece that bottom of the spring. You kind of thread it into that. Can't see it in the camera, but you'll see it when you're working on it. And she's in. So I ended up taking out the lower control arm bolt. You may or may not need to do that depending on the spring compressor that you use for the removal. I used one that was designed for a larger spring. I was able to make it work, but it required me to remove that. Definitely before you remove that bolt, have your spring compressed and disconnect your shock. And you may want to support the hub assembly. Put it back in. If you're going to replace the lower shock bushing, now would be the time to do it. I'm going to reuse mine. For my baseline setting, I've just dialed this down until I could fit a 15mm combination wrench head between the two adjusters. So the open head side of the 15mm wrench fits snugly like a feeler gauge. I did the same thing on the other side, so all things being created equal, they should be pretty much the same ride height. I guess we'll see when we're all said and done. So, for the shock, transfer over your old dust sleeve and bump stop. Mine's worn out, looks like junk. Yeah, I'm not going to wait to buy new ones, so I'm going to go without it. You still need the giant metal cup washer. So, this thing wants to extend all the time. So, compress it down. And you have to be quick about this, because it wants to extend out. Matter of fact, I found, put the bottom end in, then compress the top down, and let it extend up into the top mount hole. And then throw the nuts on. You guys don't need to see that. It will be necessary to raise the control arm a little bit in order to get the nut on. Just a hair. The shock, once it's installed, it actually controls how far down the control arm can drop once you jack the car. The top mount nut and bump stop assembly has this captured nut. You can bend the tab and install the new nut, or reuse the old one. I'm going to reuse the old one. So I finally got the stance that I like. I think it took me maybe 2 or 3 times to get the front set up how I liked it, and then probably like 5 different attempts at the rear because it kept being too low. But I finally got the stance that I like. The ride is great. It's still really smooth. The only time I would say that it's noticeably different than stock is when you get on roads with potholes or rougher surfaces. It is somewhat harsher. Outside of that, on your normal streets that you drive every day, the ride is as smooth as stock. Cornering is noticeably better. Probably a lot to do with the lower stance. And I do have the stock sway bars, which aren't great, but I upgraded the bushings to polyurethane, and the car handles as good as I could ever want it to. I do run the car at the drag strip, so that's why I kind of kept the softer sway bars, as it helps with hooking up at the drag strip. All in all, for the cost, I would recommend the RSK coilovers.
The next testament will be longevity, and I guess we'll see. Thanks for watching the video.